Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to the first ever United States Postal Inspection Service Facebook Live. And we are here today to talk about careers with the Inspection Service. I am Specialist Porter, and I am here with the lovely, talented Inspector Daniel, who's going to be the fountain of wisdom, who's going to answer all of your questions. So if you have questions, message us on Facebook Messenger, and we'll try to get to as many of them in the next half hour as we can. And before we get started, I want to go over just some ground rules. And the first one being that we're not here to talk about package delivery issues. So if your package hasn't arrived at your house, sorry, can't help you. Go to USPIS.com and file a complaint there. And the next rule is that we're only dealing with general recruiting questions or related to careers. So if you, for example, if you've applied, we have a hiring window currently open for inspector positions. And if you want to know the status of your application, sorry, can't help you with that, but we'll give you info on if you have any issues or anything relating to your specific application. And like I said, we're going to try to get to everybody's question, but in case we don't, you can always go to www.uspis.gov for more info. So with all those rules, we'll be ready to kick off. And so I thought I'd ask you, first question is, tell us a little bit about the Postal Inspection Service, so people who may not be entirely familiar.
Okay, I can definitely do that. We are the federal law enforcement arm of the post office, and we deal with all types of crimes dealing with the mail. So anything from identity theft to mail theft, violent crimes, prohibited mailing, dangerous mailing. So we take care of all those things.
Great. And first question is from William, and he wants to know, how many times a year does the USPIS have their open season, open the hiring season basically for the general public?
For general public, we typically do once a year. For veterans and 1811s, it's normally once a quarter, and you'll see those posted on our website.
Great. And we have a question from Nick, and he wants to know, as a current applicant, what's the estimated length of time between steps in the application process? So maybe you could just kind of walk everybody through what the process is from the minute, from the from hitting the website to the swear-in.
Yeah. It's really going to vary depending on your situation. Your security clearance is going to be the most lengthy part of the process. Once you submit your application, you'll receive emails back and forth from our applicant processing unit requesting information regarding your security clearance. Once you turn that information in, your next step will be to meet with a recruiter in your local area. You'll get additional testing at that point. If you get past that stage, we will then call you back for an assessment center. Once you complete our assessment center and pass everything successfully, you'll move on to your polygraph. And after your polygraph is successfully completed, you'll have an interview. So those steps can vary. I mean, it just depends on your situation, really.
Sure. Great. Sounds good. And Scott has two questions, and his first one is, actually he's got more than two, but he's lumped them in as two. First question is, does the USPIS utilize OPM to conduct background investigations?
Yes, we do. We do use OPM. We do have a lot of 1811 transfers, and I see that's the next question. So people who currently hold a clearance, we still have to initiate another clearance, and that sometimes can be a lengthy process.
Great. And does having a current TS security clearance assist in the application process?
It does, but there still will be additional clearance.
Great. And and he's asking, why do applications take a long time?
It just, again, it can vary just depending on what comes up in your background.
Okay, great.
I see some questions floating over here. Do you want me to address those? Yeah. I see, is there an age limit? Absolutely. It's also on our website, but the age limit, you have to be at least 21, and you have to be on board before your 37th birthday.
Great. And Casey wants to know, more about the physical fitness requirements. So how many push-ups do you have to do to become an inspector?
Well, that information is currently under review, and you can find a little bit more on our website regarding what the current process is for the physical requirements.
Great. And Molly, let's see here. I'm sorry. Actually, Michael has several questions. Where's the testing held for that portion of the process?
Your initial information exchange will be done locally with your field recruiter. So normally someone in your local office or area will hold your first set of testing. And if you're advanced to the assessment center phase, that's done in Potomac, Maryland.
Okay, great. And how much is the average salary of a postal inspector?
Well, that can vary as well. You can find that information on our website, USPIS.gov.
Great. And are there any dates if you've already, they want to know, are there dates to apply if you already have a position within the post office? Now, we had one last month, correct?
We did earlier in this month.
Earlier in this month, that's right.
We had a internal posting for just postal employees. Currently this week we're open to everybody, so postal employees, 1811s, veterans, anybody that meets the standard can apply.
Yeah, because this one's open to everyone.
To everybody.
Yeah.
As long as you qualify.
Yeah. And so is there a lot of, and Michael's next question is there a lot of traveling required for the hiring portion and / training?
Not the hiring portion. The assessment center is done in Potomac, Maryland, and the training is as well as done in Potomac, Maryland. So those would be the only 2 times you'd have to travel.
Okay. And his last question is, what helpful tips do you have for the testing portion?
My advice is to pay attention. We lose a lot of applicants via simple mistakes. So please just pay attention and read all the questions thoroughly before you answer them.
Great. Sounds good. And Molly has a question. She worked through the application process on IRAS and arrived at the agreement page, but didn't encounter anywhere to upload a resume. Should I be writing extensively in the boxes on the specialized experience page, or did I miss where to submit a resume?
At that stage, that's not a requirement. Yeah, and then if that is a more specific situation question, so you can send an email to PI recruitment at USPIS.gov, and they can assist you with that.
Yeah, sounds good. And let's see what else we got here. Just take a little. Another salary question from Rob. Someone with 6 years civilian law enforcement experience.
Again, that's something that will be addressed during your hiring process.
Okay. And what type of subject matter jurisdiction does your agency have? I would think that's kind of relating to what do we investigate? Because I think a lot of people kind of assume that, I think kind of the collective, if you were to ask someone on the street, they sit there, they think postal inspectors just sit there and look at boxes all day long and inspect mail. But what do postal inspectors investigate?
I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but we work a lot with our partners, our other federal agencies. We investigate mail fraud, revenue protection, mail theft, identity theft, violent crimes, security investigations, child exploitation, dangerous mail, prohibited mail, and pretty much any other criminal activity related to the mail. As long as there's a nexus to the mail, we'll be involved in it.
And great.
I see another question that is pretty important. Someone on the message board asked about a bachelor's degree. That is a requirement, one that can't be waived. So.
And you have to have it in hand, because we've had a couple of people say, like, hey, I'm graduating in May.
Absolutely.
If I give you a piece of paper saying I'm getting my degree in May, does that work? Correct. No, you got to have it.
You actually have to have your conferred degree before you apply. So very good question.
Yeah. And Thomas wants to know, are there steps along the way to ensure applications aren't lost?
Well, you can always check the status of your application by sending an email to the PR recruitment mailbox. Again, like I said, it depends on your personal situation. Sometimes those steps are lengthy and you may not hear anything, but you can always check in and make sure everything's okay.
Yep. And Mark wants to know if you have prior federal law enforcement time or experience, does that affect the 37-year-old age limit?
It does. If you are an 1811, you can apply after the age of 37 because you would be technically considered a transfer at that point, but only if you're 1811. There are a lot of different law enforcement categories, but that's the one that you would have to be in order to get a waiver for the 37 age limit.
Great. And John wants to know, how often are individuals relocated to a different state after accepting a position?
A very good question. It just varies based on the need of the agency. So at the time of your conditional offer, you'll be offered a location. And if that's not feasible for you, you can ask to be, to waive that and to remain in the applicant pool.
Okay, great. And once you're hired, do you move? How often do you move around? Do you move around a lot? Is it you get to stay in one location for?
No, so you would basically be assigned to that location until you apply to move somewhere else or get promoted into a different position in a different location.
Okay, great. And Phil wants to know, any idea where most vacancies tend to be? That's a very popular question.
And again, it just depends. It's based on our retiring and attrition rates. So it would just vary from just depending on when your class started.
Great. And
a good question that I'd like to address.
Sure.
Mario says,
yes.
when will Postal Police be hiring?
Yes.
And we should have vacancy posted in February.
Awesome.
So just keep an eye out for our Postal Police, which should be hiring both internally and externally.
Great. And yeah, just to follow up on that, we post all of our hiring window openings on our social media channels on Facebook and also on our Twitter, Instagram accounts as well. So if you haven't already, like us and follow us, and you will be among the first to know whenever we have a portal opening that's coming up. And so Stefan wants to know, do current 1811s have to take the polygraph?
That's another great question. 1811s, you're considered a transfer, so you would not have to take the polygraph. It would be basically a background check to ensure that everything is where it needs to be to grant you an additional background check.
Okay, great. And Scott wants to know, is starting GS level negotiable if a candidate is a prior federal employee, or do all inspectors start at GS 10 step 1? That's really inside government ball there.
That's a very good question as well. One I'm going to have to defer because it just would depend on the situation.
Great. And Stefan wants to know, do current 1811s have to take the polygraph?
That was the one.
That was the one? Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Got a little confused there. And KC wants to know, how many current vacancies are open right now?
Another really good question. It would just vary. All of our classes are 24 students per class. So we would be adding 24 at a time each time. But where the vacancy are that would just kind of vary with our attrition rates.
Okay. Great. And Thomas wants to know, if he applied during an open period, I'm assuming this period, but he's currently a postal employee, could his application be considered under the earlier this month postal worker window opening?
So your application would be counted in this period, but because you are a current postal employee, you would receive that consideration. Okay,
great. And Jeremy wants to know, how are all of the different hiring paths compared to each other in the hiring process? Will someone under the academic achievement track be compared to someone with prior 1811 experience?
Very good question. So 1811s are a special category. The other 4 tracks are language skills, postal experience, specialized non-postal experience, and academic achievement. So those would be 4 separate tracks on their own, and then 1811 transfers are considered on their own. But to specifically answered that question, those would put you a little bit ahead of the game.
Great. Good to know. And Nana has a question, and she wants to know, okay, so you need to have a degree, but does it have to be specific to law enforcement? Because she's currently in school for emergency management and homeland security.
Great question. No, you do not have to have a criminal justice or law enforcement related degree. As long as you have your bachelor's degree, that works for us, and you just need to meet all of the other requirements.
Great. And again, someone else at Mercy is asking you a question again, is if your career postal, is the 37-year-old age limit waived?
No, the only two situations where that would be waived would be an 1811 transfer or someone with military veteran experience.
Okay, great. And Paul wants to know, his application is still active from 2017. And his next step would be the assessment center, and he's been a postal employee for 3 years. He wants to know if he'll get an invite.
So, like I was saying before, it really can vary with what's going on in your background clearance. So just keep all your information up to date with our applicant processing unit and make sure that we have your current email address, everything on file. And as they get to you, they'll contact you via email to set that up.
Great. And
this is one I'd like to answer.
Okay, great.
Thomas asked how many academies will be offered this year. We're planning to do 3 academies.
Oh, good.
For 2019. So very good question.
Great. And how often can people apply?
So we do have a lifetime limit with applications. Currently, that is two times.
Okay.
So just be, again, another reason to be extremely careful when you're putting in your application and make sure you answer all your questions completely and read everything completely, because we do lose a lot of people due to admin errors.
Okay, good to know. And Nick wants to know, does military experience help any during the process, even if you don't qualify for a veteran's preference?
It can, in order to, well, it would definitely be used as your experience, but in order to get into that elevated track, so the specialized experience track, you would need to be eligible for veterans preference. So another very good question.
Okay, great. And are there any other special skills or experiences that give people a leg up on the competition? So
we kind of touched on that before, the language skills, postal experience, specialized non-postal experience, and an example of that is military experience, and then academic achievement. So all 4 of those items will put you a little bit ahead of everyone else.
Okay, great. And Stefan wants to know, after the management interview and drug test, what's the next step for the 1811 process?
For 1811s, again, it really varies depending on your background check. That's the number one thing with 1811s. We have to make sure that everything is good to go before we can move forward with you. So just check in with PI recruitment and they can keep you in the loop of where you are.
Great. And to follow up on the 1811s, to follow on that same track, are you going to hire current active 1811s this year?
Absolutely. Active 1811s can apply currently during our general opening. Go ahead and put your application in. There is a box that asks about being an 1811, which will put you in a different process. So it's more of a transfer process, but you do need to go through the portal to initiate that. Great.
And Carol wants to know, what's the best part of being a postal inspector?
Hi, Carol. The best part of being a postal inspector is doing things like this, coming up with new ideas and ways to reach people and getting the information out. Thank you, Carol.
You're great. And he also wants to know, what makes the Postal Inspection Service different from other special agent or federal law enforcement jobs?
I feel like we can touch a little bit of everything because the mail is so relative to everything that all of our other, 3-letter agencies do. So we partner a lot. So I feel like we can touch a little bit of everybody.
Great. And just, we're still getting a lot of questions about the degree. So just to kind of reiterate, you need a degree. You need a degree in order to apply. And William wants to know, how many times a year do they have an open season?
So currently We do once a year for the general public and quarterly for our veterans and our 1811s. So people who are actively in other agencies as an 1811, they can apply once a quarter, and our general public is once a year.
Great. So this general public one is it for 2019 then, right?
It should be.
Should be. Okay.
Yeah.
So unless it could happen again, but
just keep watching the website and our social media.
Absolutely.
And we'll keep you informed.
Yep. And Daniel wants to know, what months will the Academy be in 2019? It looks like there's one in February and one in May.
Yes, correct. I don't have my list right in front of me, but there's one in the summer, there's one coming up in February, and there'll be one in the fall.
Great. And Scott has an interesting question that's not necessarily, it's related to the inspection service, but not necessarily in careers. He wants to know that he's heard the inspection service takes a case from cradle to grave, while other organizations pass it to another jurisdiction if the case moves geographically. Is that true?
Absolutely true.
Yeah, great. And Jeremy wants to know, if someone claimed that they spoke a second language, when it comes time to take that test, is their offer rescinded or reconsidered?
Oh, that's another.
That's a really great question.
The language test, I do not believe is pass or fail. And what I mean by pass or fail is I don't feel like that's a disqualifier. You just would not be able to claim your language as specialized experience. So that would remove you from that quicker track. So you would just be back in with the general public if you said you could speak Spanish, but you didn't pass our Spanish test.
Okay.
Very good question.
Yeah, great question. And Thomas just said, sounds like a great place to work.
It is a great place.
It really is. It's a great place. I'm not an inspector, but it's been great working here, and I love the people I work with, and everybody's helpful and really, a great team. And it's great when you like your job. Okay. And Jeremy wants to know, why is a 2 application limit not posted on the website?
I believe it is in our frequently asked questions.
Okay. And I think Don wants to know, why aren't the 2 lifetime limits extended for applicants that had a computer lockout due to the inspection service computer problem and no fault of their own? Actually,
it is. That is waived. If there is ever a situation where our system is down and you can't get the application in and you're already in the process, you can send an email in to PI Recruitment. And if that was indeed the case, they'll let you finish whatever it is you were doing when the computer wasn't working. Great. So just, again, it would be on you to reach out to us to make sure that you get that opportunity.
Great. And Carol wrote in, what types of cases do postal inspectors work? Can we touch on that a little earlier? Yes. Just to kind of recap, it's not just, it's anything, as they say here, it has to do with the nexus to the mail. So any kind of connection to the mail. But that includes, and I didn't know this, I'm fairly new here, and I didn't know this coming in, that includes cyber crimes, that includes child exploitation, it's drugs in the mail.
Yes. Dangerous mail.
Dangerous mail. The recent package bomb incidents we were very much involved with. So there's really a lot of variety in the work that postal inspectors do. Yep. And then too, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you're doing recruiting work, and there are inspectors who are doing communications and finance, and so you can get a lot of different exposure to a lot of different fields. Absolutely. That's working in some other law enforcement agencies, you might not get that chance. Right. And
that's a good question. Jim asked, do inspectors get off on weekends and all federal holidays? That's a twofold. Yes and no. You might be off, but we're always on call. So you might be off work, but you might get called into work. So we're always here to protect our carriers and our infrastructure and our facilities. So things happen sometimes on the weekends, sometimes on the holidays. You just really never know when you might get that call.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric wants to know, is the inspection service America's first federal law enforcement agency? Yes, we are. We are absolutely America's first and oldest and best.
Yeah.
And Aaron wants to know, Is it possible to get into the fall academy class if applying during the current open season if everything background related goes quick?
I can't really answer that just because you never really know what might come up in your background. Again, it's a very extensive background check, and each person varies just depending on your situation. So it would just depend. I would just apply and just continuously watch your email, return all your documents as soon as possible, and ensure that you answer all the questions fully and truthfully.
Yes. Truthfully is always good.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes. Nana wants to know, is the language testing limited to Spanish? So what languages are you looking for?
No, any foreign language can apply. I just use Spanish because that was the first thing that popped in my mind. But any foreign language can be claimed, and then you'll be tested on that as well. So very good question.
Great. And again, got a couple of questions about can you just go again over the kind of the time for each step in the process?
It just, again, it really varies depending on your situation. Like I said, you'll go through your application process, your information exchange at your local division office. You'll be tested there. If you pass everything, you'll move on to the next step, which would be your assessment center. You'll be continuously doing your background checks during that time. Once you pass the assessment center successfully, you'll move on to your polygraph screening. If you pass that successfully, you'll go on to your management interview. Once a conditional offer is made, you'll be requested to do your medical exam and your drug test. So that could take any length of time, and I can't really give you a clearer window on it.
And the inspector training course is?
Currently, it's 14 weeks.
14
weeks in Potomac, Maryland.
Yep. And Rob wants to know, I currently do work for the DOJ doing financial white-collar crime investigations, but I'm not in 1811. Are all inspection service positions strictly field work, or can he find a home using his white-collar crime investigative skills?
Yes and no. So we do have a lot of non-law enforcement positions. Unfortunately, those normally don't get posted externally. Most of those come internally. But as a non-1811, you can always apply to be an inspector. It would have to be under our general opening, which is going on right now until Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time.
Yes, that's important. That's important to mention. It is open for everyone right now for inspector positions, and that window is closing quickly at
Saturday
morning, 10 a.m. Central Time.
Yes.
So go to USPIS.gov and get your application in.
Yes.
And Johnny wants to know, if you're a current postal employee, is it true that you have to resign your position prior to being accepted? And if the academy doesn't work out for you, then you're not going to be able to go back to your previous job. So it sounds like he's asking about retreat rights to your position, and that's more of a question that I'll have to defer, and it would really depend on the situation. Okay, so probably PI recruitment at USPIS.gov. Correct. Again, just to reiterate, if you've applied, or if you have a question relating to your specific situation, you can email us at pirecruitment@USPIS.gov. And so
Carol.
What is the birthday of the inspection service?
Carol. It's August 7th. 1775. And we will celebrate our birthday this year.
As we do every year. Yes. And Daniel has an interesting question. He wants to know, what would happen if the Postal Service goes private? Is there a risk for the future of the inspection service?
Oh, very good question, which is way above my pay grade. I'm just gonna defer from that question. Yeah. It's a little bit above my pay grade. Yeah. We're gonna talk about recruiting.
And we can't really predict the future.
Exactly.
I don't think there's any job that's you can predict the future in. So, but I mean, this is I think one of the more stable places to be. Absolutely. If that's what you're looking for, is kind of job stability. So, keep that in mind. And Kim wants to know, do postal inspectors have a K-9 unit?
That's a great question. We do not currently. We do
I wish
work
we
a lot
did.
with our local partners. So most of the time in the field, you'll work with local police departments and sheriff's departments and HIDA units, and normally just partner with them because we're partnering with them anyway. So we just utilize their resources.
Great. And we're getting down to the wire here, but Brad wants to know, how would you describe the work culture here? He said it's a great team of people and a great place to work, like we mentioned a little earlier.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. Like we all help each other. We all make sure that if something is going on, everybody wants to be in on it, and everybody wants to help make sure that we succeed. So it's a great team to work for.
It is, it really is. And last question, did people get paid during the recent government shutdown?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's another benefit. So anyway, it is half an hour flew by. That and really I just want to thank you very much for taking your time out to impart your wisdom to the world, to the social media world on here. And again, just to reiterate, the website has a ton of information on careers. It's www.uspis.gov. And again, just to reiterate, if you've applied for, we have our window that's open now. And if you've applied for a postal inspector position and you've got questions relating to your specific application, email us, and that's again pirecruitment@uspis.gov.
Yes.
And if you again to mention, like I said, we announce we're really trying to ramp up our social media, and we're trying to put our news and all our info out there, and that includes our hiring window openings. So if you haven't already, like us and follow us so that you can be among the first to know, because whenever we get the info, whenever we get the word that hey, it's coming, we post it, so you will be among the first to know. Oh, and I see somebody put the email address in the comments. Thank you, Lena. Yeah, thanks, Lena. And thanks to everyone out there. Your questions were great. Keep them in. You can message us, and we'll try and get back with you as quick as we can. And thanks to our lovely, talented Inspector Rogers, who is our behind-the-scenes technical advisor. And thanks very much. Good luck to all of you. And good luck. Thanks for being a part of this. We all made history today, and we're glad you were a part of it. Thank you. Thanks. Take care. Bye.